Yeah, about the technology, I must say that I'm shocked, in fact, how much scientific knowledge is stored in this book, because it's like 1,000 pages, and a lot of science, and it's not very common, in fact, in nowadays. And my first warm-up question is: do you feel that today's readers demand hard science in the book? That they're no longer being, like mesmerized with glitchy things and ideas, but they want to read something that possibly could happen?
Not really. I mean, I'm not saying that they do not demand hard science, but just for me, I'm not trying to depict my possible reader when I write, because I personally think that this is wrong. The very same moment a writer starts to imagine what his or her reader could be, that's really, that's the moment where you're just stepping on the road, which can lead to end up writing some kind of cheap porn novels, and that's it. So you must first and foremost write for yourself. So I was making this story in the way that this would be the book by which I first put my hand on the shelf in the bookstore. And yeah, of course, I guess from reading it, you already realized that I'm a big fan of Michael Crichton and Andy Weir and others who put realism, who really treat realism as one of the main features of their novels. So, but writing it, I didn't really have a feeling that there are like lots of people who need this. And still, there were the thoughts were opposite. I mean, this is 1,000 pages brick, and it's not just 1,000 pages book. That's the 1,000 pages book, which is the beginning of a series with more 1,000 pages books. So
you can build a house when you finish.
So the whole saga would be like 4,000 pages long, and well, if I had any thoughts at the time when I was writing, those were just like about like probably I'm suicidal. It's just like the end of my career. Nobody will read this because it's an era of TikTok and blah blah blah.
Okay, but you mentioned Andy Weir. When The Martian came out, it was something like the biggest advantage when you think about the promotion and advertising of this book. It's scientifically accurate.
Absolutely.
And
I love it.
People loved it.
Yeah.
And people love Interstellar because it's scientifically accurate. So I think there is a reader and there is a viewer and so on for that kind of writing and creating.
Well, let me disagree, because in my opinion, Martian by Andy Weir became the world phenomenon because of its plot. It's really simple and at the same time fascinating. It's about just to get that man back, I mean, the realistic background really helped it. But if not for a good story, I'm not sure that this book would get the recognition it really got.
Yeah, it must match. Everything should go, and it's a story about people. It's a story about connection. It's a story about being human in isolation.
Sorry for interrupting. Like, for instance, Peter Watts. I mean, I love him. I mean, it's just a beautiful, extremely talented and knowledgeable author. But he has just a fraction of popularity of Andy Weir. Because why? Because I mean, his books are brilliant, but they really lack that hooks which plot in Martian has. So that's a good example, I guess. Here's like absolutely scientifically correct what's, and here is scientifically correct where. But this one is like selling like millions, I don't know, maybe tens of millions of copies in the world because of the story itself.
Yeah, you need to be a philosopher. You become a philosopher, in fact, reading Watts. Because a lot of knowledge to put in your brain to actually, understand what he's talking about. So what was your idea for that? How to balance one and another? Because you were writing for yourself, as we already stated here. So what is your attitude?
First of all, it should be, the whole story should be about people. People want to read about other people. So, and that's what I guess Peter Watts is lacking. So I have, like, it's kind of hard to me to answer your question because there was no like an instant moment in time where I realized like, yeah, I'm writing Kolonia, or I'm writing like this huge saga, New Dark Ages. I'm just a huge fan of popular science. I'm a publisher as well in Ukraine. I mean, we publish mostly popular science books, and I read them throughout my whole life. So this book, it took me about 3 years to write it, but 5 years before it, I was just, so to say, gathering information. But it's not like, okay, I decided that I want to write like a huge saga about the world in the 22nd century. No, I was just reading some stuff, and at some point I just felt like those stories kind of started gravitating towards each other. And that's probably was the moment where this whole saga appeared without even me realizing. So, but if you mentioned there is, in the end of the book, there is a huge list of
another book
used literature, and those books, all those books I read just to make this story as realistic as possible. So, and while reading them, like, I just realized, so I really want to create the not just, first of all, it wasn't a saga. I just realized, like, okay, I want to write a book about the future, make it as most realistic as possible, and I should depict like some plot lines or focus points, and but there are just lots of them, like climate, politics, Mars colonization, the conflict between super specialists from the Earth and those who were born and forced to stay on Mars. And well, at some point I realized, like, it couldn't be like a one book, and it should be like a couple of books, like, or even more, and that there should be hundreds of characters, not because I want them, but because they are needed just to put all of these together. It's not, so to say, a recipe for success. Yeah, but still, as I told you before, I made this book just for myself. I'm just happy that so many people in Ukraine, and I hope in Poland as well, just liked it.
I became a fan, I must say, and a lot of characters, I may say. I made a mind map of the book, to prepare to this interview. And when I just, turned on this character list, it was going on and on and on and on a couple of screens, I have to scroll down to look through all of them. So a lot of people, I imagine it must be a horror to manage all of these connections and so.
Correct, yeah. I mean, first of all, I had like A1 format sheet over my working place where I put all these connections. And I also had like cards for characters with their appearances, because like writing it for 3 years, you can just lose track of someone. And also it's even more important with kind of small notes about the goals of each character, because appearances, you can really fix it. Like if you just even like lost track of someone, you can just add like a small line like, he or she just changed the haircut, etc. It's really easy to fix. But if you lost track of goals, yeah, that's you just should rewrite the whole story. So lots of this stuff, and it wasn't so easy, but that's my job, and that's the job I love. So I won't say that it was hard. It was lots of fun working on this story.
Okay, so let's talk about this fun and dive deep into this scientific and other things. So while writing the book, you made a lot of research. As you said, the bibliography is amazing and long. And do you came across something that made you wonder, wow, I didn't know that about colonization of Mars?
Well, lots of such things. Not only about Mars. Like, okay, for instance, for concerning the Mars, the first thing, which is kind of obvious if you think about it, but which I didn't realize before I started reading those books, that it's not so bad concerning the harmful cosmic radiation on Mars. I mean, it is bad, but not like deadly, because first of all, the Mars itself shields you from the half of the cosmic radiation from beneath the planet. And then also, if you stay deep in some deep values, yeah, Martian atmosphere is thin. But if you're standing deep enough, just thick enough to dissipate all the most harmful particles. So it's like, yeah, I mean, it's dangerous, but it won't kill you. It probably, even if you don't have some kind of like special protections, like blocks of ice with bore inside or whatever, or some kind of leaded shields. Even without that, like during the 2-year missions to Mars, you probably just get the higher risk of getting cancer later in your life, but you won't die immediately. So that was like, okay, it is bad, but it is kind of manageable. That's the risk you can take. That's also what is really kind of not surprised but shocked me. It was not about Mars. It was about the Earth. It was about the climate change. I mean, of course, I knew that the climate change is real and blah blah blah, etc. But when I started reading books, like more scientific books about climate change, I didn't realize that how bad things are, and they're like really, really bad. I mean, they're so bad that, like, with the worst case scenario, like within 150 years, our civilization just could come to an end. So it might happen, it might not, because this is really like the worst case scenario. But they are absolutely realistic from scientific point of view.
And I would like to stay on Mars for a moment, in fact, because, okay, so these are some technological problems to be solved, like the radiation. I was wondering about the rest radiation, because even if the atmosphere blocks some powerful particles, they split up and continue their travel. So we would have to think about this little fella as well.
That's I fixed easily, not really easily. First of all, it's just fiction story. So that's I fixed with another invention. And I have to emphasize that this is just a completely fictional story. The drug does not exist, because there were people on my presentations who really asked me, like, does it exist? So no, not yet, and probably not in the closest future. But so I developed a drug called telemide. And in my story, and I emphasize again, only in my story, that's the drug which actually lengthens the telomeres at the end of our chromosomes. And the longer telomeres are, basically the younger the human being, and also the more genetically stable the cell is. So it just faster recovers itself from different kind of damages. So in my story, that drug was developed specifically for the first astronauts who flew from the Earth to Mars, just to defend them from that harmful cosmic radiation. But that drug also has a so-called side effect, and I'm putting quotes like side effect. And of course, scientists knew about that side effect. It also stops aging. So, and in my story, that side effect became general knowledge when people, just ordinary people, started to mention that those who flew to Mars just came back way younger than they were when they departed. So, and that idea, that it really helped me a lot. And first of all, there are lots of plot lines which I can use, like for, you know, just some kind of problems with the distribution of this telemite on Mars, or contrabanda from this Martian telemite on Earth, because of course on the Earth it should be banned, because we have lots of problems here on the Earth without stopping dying, you know. So, but the main point which the invention of telemite in my story fixed for me as a writer is that it gave me the reason, not me, it gave people on the Earth the reason to fly to Mars. Because I guess you already understood that I consider the utmost realism the main feature of this novel, of the whole saga. So actually, I didn't start writing for quite a long this. I mean, I had it in my mind, but I didn't start writing it because of one problem. I didn't see the economical reason for us to fly to Mars, because the truth is there is absolutely nothing for us to do there. Everything we can mine, produce, develop on Mars, we can mine, produce, develop on the Earth way easier and way cheaper. So I was thinking like, okay, I want to write about already developed settlement, like colonies on Mars, but it's like they are not economically feasible, and moreover, they are absolutely senseless. They are unlogical. But I developed telemite. And that's what, in my story, forced people want to go to Mars. Because now, before telemite, they just choose between, for instance, like 80 years on the Earth, or just the possibility to die gracefully on Mars. Now they choose, after telemite appeared and they know about its side effect, now they choose between 80 years on the Earth or 200, 300, or even more years on Mars. And that's kind of something. That's what I think, in my opinion, could force people to move to Mars. And when they gather on Mars in large, so to say, quantities, they could start some kind of economy which will gradually will become less and less dependable from the Earth. It's still fiction, I know it, but it's kind of, telemite made this fiction kind of reasonable for me, not as a fiction writer, but as a reader, as a person.
Yeah, it's like quasi-immortality, perfect currency.
Yeah, fact. So actually I was replying to your question, like, because that actually eliminate the need of some kind of protection and shield, because if you had some kind of therapy which keeps your telomeres long and the cells fix themselves easily, you don't care about that radiation. You just live normal life, and there is no need to hide beneath the grounds because you have this wonderful telemite.
But you also mentioned some psychological aspects, and this is very important as well. In your book, this psychological side of being in Mars, contained in habitats and so on, affects even children. And do you think it
Mostly
might be?
Children.
Yeah. Do you think it might be in the future? Let's dive in future colonization of Mars, the real one, if it will ever happen. Will it be even bigger problem than the technological issues right now?
Absolutely. I think that's the main reason why we as a species aren't able to colonize any other world outside of the Earth. And here are my thoughts. Like, of course, those who flew first to Mars, they will be like superhumans. I mean, they would be the best, like the best health, the best mental state, lots of resources. They know what they are doing and where they are going. But when that first generation of colonists start having children in the other world, those children would be normal, because when you just mixed the genes, the gene pool between two individuals, I mean, you don't always have the best values from both. I mean, two perfect parents could have like just lazy or just stupid kid, or I mean, that's how it works.
Story of every king.
Yeah. So what I mean, but when you have when that first colony that will start having children, they would be just ordinary, with all the problems the children have here on Earth. Some of them would be depressed, some of them would be lazy, some of them would be unable to learn something new, etc. And then just, that's actually one of the main conflicts in the story, and I love this conflict because it is natural. What I mean by natural, that I as a writer shouldn't develop some kind of, like strings to help, or some kind of like push point to help this conflict work. So what do we have? On the one hand, we have this super specialist from the Earth. And on the other hand, we have these kids who were born on Mars. And because they grew up on Mars, they have changes in their body. They have morphological changes in their body. They have bigger hearts. They have thinner bones. Their immune system just unable to deal with lots of unharmful bacteria from the Earth, because they grew up in the most sterile environment human being ever experienced. And because of these changes, those who born on Mars are absolutely unable to fly back to the Earth. So what you have here, you have just this super specialist who fly from the Earth just to earn some money on Mars, just to get telomered, get younger, and then fly back on Earth, just chilling on the seaside. And on the other hand, you have these kids, basically kids who are forced to compete with those super specialists, with no like education, with no normal qualifications, with not so good skills, etc. And it's just unavoidable. On any other world, unavoidable. Moreover, no matter how far we go, we would still remain the same apes from who roamed African savanna. So we still need like spaces. We still need to feel the wind on our faces. We still need sun. So, and those kids working mostly on low-waged, low-skilled manual labors, they would live in small confinements, small habitats, with sometimes haven't seen the sun for years on Mars. So, I mean, that's just the straight way to depression. And actually, all what happened in the end of the book, I'm like Chuck Palahniuk, I didn't write it like straight, but like, that's all about depression. I mean, they had that concert which lifted their spirit up and then came back to the normal, ordinary stuff, and nothing changed. And they want to change something, but they still young teenagers who do not realize that their desire to change threatens the very existence of the colony. So that's, in my point of view, that's absolutely real, and that's the reason why we as a species are absolutely unable to colonize any other world.
And it's very different to the real stories of colonization, like the North and South America, because the environment was so different.
It was the same planet. Yeah, it was the same planet. So, I mean, I'm not saying that we are unable to put humans on Mars. I mean, at some point in history, sooner or later, probably later, we will put a human being there. And sooner or later, there would be some kind of settlement, but they would be really small. They would be similar to research stations which we have now, for instance, in Antarctica. Just for dozen of people and fully dependable from the Earth. That's it. So I know it may sound strange from a guy who just wrote, like, who started writing 4,000 pages saga about also about Mars colonization, but you have to distinguish me as a science fiction writer and as a person. So yeah, I can write about this, and I can do my best to make this story as realistic as possible. But as a person, I mean, I don't believe that it will ever happen.
Yeah, but you point on the real problems that are attached to the colonization of different planets. When I'm talking about colonization, I'm talking about a big one, you know, like 1 million people. Or
not just
like
plant the flag and just fly back.
Some scientific bases like the Antarctica bases or something like that. You were mentioning about this currency, telomid, yes. I have the Polish version, so telomid. And I was wondering, what could be possibly another drive to go to Mars for people? And I recall this strange thing. It was called Mars 1. Do you remember?
It failed completely.
Yeah, it failed completely. It was failure from the beginning. But many people believed in it. Even here in Poland, I met some people that were convinced they are going to Mars. And I was wondering and asking them, what's your reason to go there? There's nothing there. You're going there to, build yourself a grave. And rather quicker than later.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter, their people wanted to go there. It was like their, I don't know, dream come true or something like that. But so I thought maybe this could be this drive. But then I thought, no, maybe the first wave of these people. And when another very eager people would see what happened, and a lot of them would not even reach the Mars, in fact, and die through the journey, they will say, okay, maybe it's not so bad over here. Okay, these manure people on the Mars, because they were collecting manure, people's wastes, and produce some fertilizers and so on from it. Very picture-like thing. There also always, when it's Mars, there must be some human feces. It's, I don't know.
But that's also real. Yeah, it's not because real. I'm a fan of feces. No. It's just not. That's like a real problem.
Yes, it is. And do you think that, because I think this is a metaphor, a metaphor for the thing that are here on Earth, and correct me if I'm wrong, for some, occupations that are essential for our well-being, for sustaining a civilization, and they are underappreciated. So this is a metaphor for something like that?
Yes, it is. But it's also a real problem because,
But I think machines could do that, not people, yeah?
Well, that's a nice question, and I'm not dodging it. We'll come back to it, but I have to say that that's a real problem because, like, Martian soil, regolith, is generally quite okay for cultivation. I mean, there is some kind of composites and chemicals which are toxic for us, but you can just basically, if you have enough water, you can just wash them out. But for the plants to grow, they need not only soil, like carbon and bacteria, they need also nitrogen. That's really important component, and there are not a lot of it on Mars. So I have an atlas of Mars, like a huge one. My wife brought it to me from the United States with geological stuff, and I was actually looking for minerals from which you can extract nitrogen. not a lot of them. And there is like a company, Irish company, Ignero, which actually producing nitrogen for some purposes, like from the mines really, really far away from the colonies. And that's the only place where you basically, like, I forgot the name of that mineral, but that's like the real way to get nitrogen on Mars, but there are not a lot of them, of it. So, and you have to have it to grow food. And you have like, and if you have like 120,000 inhabitants, you need a shitload of that. So the only way, the only way you just should collect feces. I mean, or just bring them from the earth. Like there is no way around. And concerning about machines,
Elon Musk would call it like shit factory or something like that. I see it with my imagination eye.
Yeah, I mean, it could be, but it also, you know, it is important job, but not that important to develop the whole other industry just of building robots who will just collect the feces and somehow proceed it. So it's you just put several people in the company and just a couple of special trucks, and you can just manage it. And it just, for me, it just cost prohibited to develop like the whole bunch of. I mean, you can do that for the science fiction story, but I just thought it would be way easier in terms of like financial terms, just to have people who deal with that problem. And it's also good for the plot, you know.
Yeah, it is. They become very important people, in fact. All right. I was wanted to ask you about this element, but you already answered my question. So let's move to a media meaning. There is a very powerful, I don't know how to call it, like influencer or something like that. Yeah. And we see the rise of influencers. In fact, many were forecasting the fall of them, but it's rather other way. How do you think it will evolve on this also meeting point of governmental power and the new media? Like
I'm not sure about the evolution of influencers here on Earth.
Because you put one in like Mars, yes.
On Earth, I have no idea. It could just go either way. But on Mars, first of all, we are talking about Zoya from Mars. And she appeared because I wanted some prominent and bright character, female character, Ukrainian on Mars. And so I was thinking like who she could be, like some kind of realistic profession or occupation. And then that idea came up with a vlogger, influencer, and I just realized like no matter what will be with influencers on Earth, someone who will first start streaming from Mars would get massive following. So that's how she appeared, and I also consider that pretty realistic. So.
There was something slightly similar recently. Do you know Tim Todd? He's an everyday astronaut, a YouTuber from United States.
Yeah.
And he was proposed to get along with other artists on the mission Dear Moon. It was a mission made by some Japanese clothing billionaire and SpaceX. And the Starship was about to take, I think, 8 or something like that artists to run around the moon, just like Apollo 8.
Yeah.
And they were about to get inspired and produce some, some art made of it. Yeah. And of course, it's like Mars 1 didn't happen.
Starship isn't ready, not even close.
Yeah. And so the Tim Todd was something like that and someone like that for a brief moment. And I saw a massive interest. People were like, speculating, emotions were hitting the roof, So I think it might happen. yeah, if someone were able to stream from Mars, like a colonist first YouTuber in Mars, on Mars.
That would be just, I mean, she would be so, I mean, first of all, massive following, massive like ad contracts. I mean, so she, and there's lots of things to advertise, to show. Like here in my story, have that concert, or it just briefly mentioned in this part, but that's the main part of the second book, Collapse, that she made a vlog, a video blog about the lady who actually just got in some crash of her like rover, and she broke her back, but then she decided to somehow manage to stay on Mars, and she learned to be like ATC controller. And she also learned to via the special like port in her brain just to control the vehicles, like mostly these Martian converti planes, just to control them. So it's like you have lots of, I mean, anything you just want, some kind of like mining of aluminium or like whatever you want. I would watch that all day long. So I also kind of like, it was, I mean, Zoya didn't appear at the beginning in my mind, but when she did, it was like an obvious idea, like how
aha moment.
Yeah. So it's like so easy.
And it made the whole story, I think, more full, you know, more realistic even, in fact, because this is a very important area that must be covered also, like media on the colony, you know. Nobody is thinking about it, in fact. You know?
Yeah.
That's strange. And about some myths, because there is a lot of myths, I think, about colonization or even human missions, in other words. Do you destroy any myths that you were believing it while working on this book? Something that I didn't know it should work like that. I was convinced it was opposite or something like that.
Oh, well, one thing just came to my mind is that there is water on Mars. I mean, saying water, I mean water ice, and lots of it. But it distributed unevenly. So I read it in some, I don't remember now in which one, but I read it in some books that the water ice is non-existent in near equatorial regions. That's like because it's a bit warmer there, and if the water ice is laying on the surface, it starts immediately to evaporate, to sublimate from the icy state to gas. Yeah. So, but if you go far to the north or far to the south, the temperature is cooler there, and the pressure of water vapor inside the Martian thin Martian atmosphere is high enough to just keep not to allow the molecules of water just go out from the ice, so the ice can exist there on the surface. So, and the problem here was that Martian colony should be located, situated somewhere near the equator. Why? Because you need sun to grow food. And where do you have more sun? Near the equator, because Mars receives like 40% less solar radiation than Earth, and you need it all just to grow your plants. So the colony should be somewhere near the equator and in some valley, but there is no ice there. There is no water there at all. So I was forced to develop in my story so-called icing mines. It's like somewhere 3,000 kilometers north from the colonies. There are like mines where workers mine ice blocks from beneath the ground, like we here on Earth mine, for instance, coal. And that was like aha moment, because I didn't know that before. So, and actually, I remember where did I get it from? From the same atlas. there was one sheet of one of the sheets on that atlas was about the concentration of water ice in the upper layer of Martian soil. And then I realized that this main central region is just absolutely waterless, no water at all. So, and that would be the problem if we ever also want not to just put a foot on Mars, but just to stay there. I mean, you have to be near the equator because it's warmer and more sun, but you also have to get water from somewhere from the north. So that was like a moment, wow.
And it's always something, you know, because first of all, I was reading, I thought perhaps he will put this in Valles Marineris, so there is a thick atmosphere, in fact, because it's very deep, so you have a pressure down there, sometimes even 20 degrees Celsius temperature. But you have a problem with the sun, for example, because you have these edges, and the sun is very dark somehow.
And also, you know why I put them in Simul Valles? Because you actually mentioned it. First of all, you have to be near the equator because of the sun. You have to be in some valley because of you have to have as much thickness of the atmosphere above you as possible. And third, you also should have lots of useful minerals around you. And the best places for those minerals are these old ancient deltas. So because of this, when Mars was wet and warm, these water flows from, for instance, Valle Marineris, they just moved all these useful minerals outside, and they actually deposited on these deltas. So if you look carefully on the map, I'm not sure if it's seen here. Not really, that's not the best map, but that's like one of those deltas. Yeah, basically from Valles Marineris. So where you can find lots of these minerals,
sediments.
Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why I put the colonies at that place, because it's kind of like ticked all these three check boxes.
And that's why I call my dear viewers a knowledge applied. So the last question: any favorite current or past Mars missions?
Well, favorite was of course MOLA, Martian Orbital Laser Altimeter, and I explain why. Because that's the a satellite. It's not a lander. It's just a satellite which scanned already with a laser in 3D the whole surface of Mars. And why it is important to me, why I like it so much, because you have here in the middle of the book like these colorful maps.
Yeah.
And it looks like just some kind of pictures, whatever. But that's not just ordinary pictures. They're put on real Martian surface. That's from MOLA. That's the data from MOLA. I mean, they're free as all data from NASA, spacecraft, satellites, whatever. You can use it for free. And it was like the whole 3D model of Mars was like, I don't know, 70 gigabytes or something. We were downloaded like for hours, literally hours, and then we just like we were just to open that file, it was a problem, but we managed. So just in case, I want you to know that this is the real surface. So if ever in your life you'll fly to Mars and you will put your foot somewhere here in Simul Valles, of course there will be no buildings. But I guess you will recognize the hills around you. So that's why it's my favorite mission.
And the boulders that are many represented here. Yeah. Okay, Max, thank you very much for this conversation. We have a lot of insight in your work, and I must say I'm a fan again.
Thanks a lot.
So thank you for that book, and I'm eager to read another